He's a man who can make you laugh, but his game on the golf course is no joke. I mean, he takes that really seriously. Andrew Wontuck is with me, showrunner at NBC Sports. He's done a lot with Golf Channel. He has his own production company. He's an owner of Gopher Digital Productions. And here we get to have him on to share his story and maybe one question about his Bills fandom. I mean, this has to be the year. No pressure at all, given all that the struggles that franchise has gone through, but this could be the year. And this certainly is going to be a fun conversation as we look at his life from a personal standpoint, but also from what he's doing in the entertainment and comedic space. I'm Brian Fenley with Fox Sports Radio and a golf broadcaster, but also working with Tennis Channel. This is the On to Something podcast. Andrew, excited to have you on. I like the hat. This has to be the year, right?
Well, I'm reticent to say it's going to be the year. I have nothing but fear inside me. I don't know if you remember the early '90s, but all Bills fans, I think we're like, you know, we're optimistic, but we can't jinx anything. We just have to go along for the ride. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Von Miller. It seems like we're in good shape, but I make no predictions.
How superstitious are you in general?
I'm actually not at all, except this is the one topic. I am never, but because of the Music City miracle last year, they changed the rules of overtime because of last year's Bills Chiefs game. The four Super Bowls. I mean, you know, this is the one time.
Why don't you think you're superstitious with anything else?
I I think I'm pretty pragmatic in you know I don't think anything somebody ever says is going to uh affect some grand, you know what I mean. I feel like just some fan sitting in an office somewhere saying like can't mess with it. Although with that said, I get anxious when you say this is going to be our year. So I don't know. Everything else, I just think it's pretty straightforward. If you do what you're supposed to do, the universe will help you out.
And clearly, what you've done and what you know in that you're supposed to do is to make people laugh, which you've done, working in comedy and working in golf, which being part of the Connor Moore show, that really has a fun angle to it. And of course, Connor is from Ireland. He does this great work with Golf Pass, this show, and it really does bring a lot of laughter and a comedic value to what you do, which once again reinforces sort of the pathway in which you've taken this career journey of yours. What do you find funny?
Wow, what do I find funny? Well, generally speaking, I think comedians are the smartest people in the room. I've made most of my career spent around really intelligent comedians. Sometimes they're tortured, but generally speaking, they are brilliant, and so they're very good at taking mundane situations and seeing them from a different point of view and showing us why everything's a little ridiculous. Um, so what I find funny is usually just somebody, intelligence, I guess, is how I would answer that question. Um, in a very broad sense. To me, yeah, like people that are funny are generally pretty smart. Um, I don't know. How was that? Was that a decent answer
You
for you?
might have just, I think you were being humble in describing yourself. I think that what you were doing there was you were saying that, you're, and this is true, the brilliance, the intelligence. And when it comes to the intelligence, where do you think that comes out most with you?
Oh, well, I mean, look, I appreciate you saying that. That's very kind of you to say. I think my talent as a producer and as owning a production company and show running, I, I think I think there's something to be said about working with people and then helping bring out their vision, and that's kind of a way I've kind of balanced my career out. I started at Comedy Central. I worked with somebody very funny named Daniel Tosh, then somebody that was brilliant named Jim Jeffries, and then now Connor Moore and our head writer, a guy named Jay Larson and Forrest Shaw. So there's these really brilliant comic mind. James Davis, I did a show with him, another fantastic comedian. And so, generally speaking, I like to figure out what they think is funny, what they want to do, how they can bring out their personality, and then we figure out how to make that happen on camera, which is always a challenge to think through something and then actually have it translate all the way through the process of filmmaking, television making. So, but so I think the key for me, I guess I'm meandering here on the question, but
good.
I do think there's a skill set in trying to work with a team and then deliver something really funny. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that on the Conor Moore Show. I mean, we've done 3 seasons, 40 episodes. It's on Golf Pass. It's also on Golf Channel Linear once in a while, and Peacock Golf. And so we've had a bunch of sketches that we've shot from. It's really fun to take an idea in the writer's room, pitch it to people, go away, write it up, then through pre-production, casting, production, shooting, editing, and then outputting it. That whole process, seeing it from idea to seeing fans enjoying it and go viral. We've had 10 to 12 sketches go around the globe and have been seen by millions of people, and that's very exciting when that happens. So yeah,
I was going to say there's a really fun sketch I watched with Conor Moore, and I think it was within the last couple of months, where he's in a golf cart and he's with a guy who's from the United States, and they're like downing hot dogs, and there's the GoPro shot or whatever of them eating the hot dogs, and the guy is like from 40 feet out putting, and he's like, "This is good, right? Like, I could pick this up." And like, I just think that stuff's hilarious. Like the thought process that goes into thinking about things that haven't been made fun of. How hard is it to be original in this business?
Yeah, I mean, that sketch was it was Conor's idea. He's like, hey, because in Ireland they play golf quite a bit different than they do in like the casual way that a lot of people do in the States. Of course, these are all stereotypes and not everything's true, but he's like, in general, in Ireland, we take golf very seriously. We don't play mulligans. We putt everything out, and your real score is your real score. And then in America, there's like tons of people that just go out and they don't play by the standard rules. They don't take it very seriously. They go out there going to have a lot of cocktails. And Jay Larson, who is our head writer, co-EP on the show, played that other character that kept saying that on the tee box. I don't know if you remember, but he kept saying like, Conor, who was from Ireland, was from like Helsinki, and he kept getting wrong in Ireland, and he just improvised that on set. And it was great. And kind of back to the point of Conor had the initial idea, then we wrote it up and we had a plan to go out there and shoot it. And then of course, when you let the actors improvise, they're going to do a lot of fun things on set that then end up making it into the sketch. And again, kind of part of that process is really, really fun when not only you had a good idea, you had a good script, but then the actors also add to it and then make it. And then I think that sketch was, I think the last time I checked, it was like up to, like 6 million people had watched it. And it's like, oh, this is great.
And there's a relatability too that I think really does lure people in when they watch that, because everybody in the United States knows somebody who's kind of like that, who will play like 5 mulligans off the first tee and do things like that and round down with their score. There was another sketch I was watching and we met recently through Hallie Ledbetter, but she was in the sketch, and there were 4 people in the shot. And one of the guys was going over his score, and like he was carded from the other players in the foursome as having like a 97, but then he found a way to make legitimate what he thought was a 75. And then he goes through these holes and it's like, dude, he's like, I had a par. And the guy's like, there's no way you had a par, because you started the hole with a white golf ball, you went in the water twice, and then you putted with a pink golf ball. I thought that was so funny, stuff like that. And the relatability, like I would have to think when you're thinking of these, it has to be relatable, but then maybe just a little extra something to it, right? To kind of get people to, yes. I don't know if hyperbole is the right word, but just to add to the dramatic impact of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that sketch was called Stroke Saver, and it had, you know, Chris Spencer was in that sketch, Matt Walsh from Veep, Hallie Ledbetter, like you said, and then Connor. So we had this amazing cast in that. But the fun thing about that sketch was, you know, a lot of times, and I think my wife would, like, I'm legitimately saying this right now, where we were playing a lot of golf in the pandemic, and we were just kind of like watching each other to see how we behaved, and we were playing, and like, you know, somebody like made the argument of like, no, I had a five, and I think they, in this particular case, they were like, they actually thought they made a five, but everyone's like, no, you had the six, like yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. And we just kind of, like you're saying, we just extrapolated that. Like, what if somebody got off the round? They actually shot a 97, but they're like making arguments for why they shot a 75 or, you know, whatever it is. And so, and then we're like, okay, well, that's a fun character to play around with. Let's, you know, let's see if, let's write that up and see what happens. And then we found by using like flashbacks, we hit, you know, Chris Spencer's character was talking to Matt Walsh's character. And then we used like a couple of flashbacks to like illustrate, you know, to hit the points home that like, you know, this guy is either a cheater or he's just not aware of, you know, how the game is actually played.
Are there areas in where you are, whether it's in your office or your home or going for a walk, where you frequent, where you find that you generate the, it's the best place to generate creative ideas? Do you find those places that you go to where for you it's more of that haven for your thoughts to just race and to figure out whatever your mind is taking you towards that could be a good idea for one of these sketches?
No, not necessarily a particular place, but I do try, especially on the golf course now, like in writing sketch comedy about golf. I try to pay attention to when I like sincerely laugh at something, and then I'm always thinking like, all right, well, could I replicate whatever made me laugh? Can that moment then be put into a sketch, or, you know, or can we build an entire sketch around that one particular joke? So yeah, I'm always kind of, I always have like another sense of like, oh, that would be really good if we put that in this, you know, in this bit or in this scene or in this, you know, whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's not a place. It's not like I don't go to, you know, I don't have a funny room, but I do. Uh, I, I am.
Oh,
I'm trying
yeah.
to like,
I'm
you know,
picturing you, Andrew, as like on the Peloton, and you're on there for an hour, and you're telling
why
everybody in
do
your immediate family, hey, leave me alone. I know I got kids. Leave me alone. This is me time. This is when I think of what could be included in a Connor Moore sketch.
Yeah, you know, I know I that typically isn't uh the case. I mean, granted, like we'll have writer room, we'll, you know, we have a writer's room which has typically been done on Zoom the last couple of years. And I will like, you know, I will open the door and scream out to the family, like, please don't come in here and start throwing, you know, anything at me. I'm actually on a Zoom and I'll close the door. So I do need a certain level of privacy, but no, typically speaking, like that's what I think is fun about the creative process is that like you never really know when it's going to happen, but as long as you're like kind of paying attention to what you're saying and seeing where people are laughing, you can usually kind of just take moments from your life and jot them down and say like, hey, you know, this so and so idea came up. I really think it's funny this, and then you tell it to a writer's room filled with other funny people in there, and a lot of times they'll be like, oh, that's great, I've seen that before, yes, oh, that's good. Or if they say no, there's nothing there, then you just kind of hold your head in shame and come up with another idea.
But the subjectivity of it, like you could think it's funny and I could think it's funny, but that other person might not. So, how do you deal with that, knowing that it's not an exact science?
Yeah, I mean that's kind of it, right? Like I've been around long enough now where I'm just like, no, that's pretty funny. Like it's, you know, it's confidence. And I think the most confident people are, of course, the funniest. That they just go out there and they know it, right? So yeah, insecurity can kind of creep in, but that's also like kind of kills funny. So I think you just got to know, like, yeah, no, that's funny. That makes me laugh. And I generally, I think, have a decent barometer of what is and isn't funny. I'm not saying it's perfect, but and that's why you have a team, right? So we have a team of, Jay Larson is a professional comedian that does stand up all over the world to thousands of people. Conor Moore is a professional comedian that I just flew over to Dublin a couple weeks ago, and he sold out back-to-back shows on a Monday and Tuesday. I think it was 1,200 people a night. He did 2 hours on stage. Like it, these people it's a very serious thing, even though it's comedy, that they are absolute professionals. So when you give them a really good premise, generally speaking, it's a fun thing to watch them chew it up and then say, "Oh, that's great. Yep, I see it." And boom, next thing you know, a day later, they'll kick back a 3-page script just on that idea. So it's an amazing thing to be a part of.
When was the last time you were on stage?
Oh, it's been a long, long time. I did college comedy, and then I a little bit when I got to LA, but I was not cut out for it. To be honest with you, the thing I did first was I got a job at the Comedy and Magic Club, and I watched the best comedians in the business do it, and I saw really what it takes to be a stand-up comedian. And yes, I dabbled in it, but to really do what they do is an amazing. It's difficult. It's a brutal business. It's a brutal life in a lot of ways. And I think, um, after trying, I just knew it wasn't right for me, and I knew that pretty quickly, maybe a year or two in, that I was like, I'm just a lot more comfortable working with and along these people, being behind the scenes, but not being able to have the full pressure of like, the lights turn on and now you've got to be funny for 45 minutes to an hour. That's a real gift that I just don't have.
When you say it's hard, and when you see what they went through, and when you were in that space doing live mic night or whatever in front of a live audience, what is it the general public, consumers of comedy, don't understand behind the scenes? To what you're saying, that's hard, that you gained a greater appreciation for those comedians and that comedic work they do that most people on the outside can't see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be the 101 of it all is that they are so good at making it look um, just, they're incredibly natural, right? They go out there and they make it seem like that is the first time they've ever said that particular joke right here live in this moment. And so many successful comedians are just so gifted at like walking back out. And of course, they're funny on their feet, even without the scripted jokes that they already have. But they're just very good at, being comfortable in their own skin, having a really strong point of view, and making that look natural, like it was the first time they ever said that. And so, I think that's the gift. I think that's the art, is almost like a magician. Is just making it appear just so natural that I just walked on, turned the microphone on, and I'm here to make you laugh. And some people really can do that. They're just always funny in every situation they're ever in. But when we're just talking about the art of stand-up comedy, the ability to tell a story over and over and over like you've never told it, and make it appear that you're just as interested in telling it for the first time as you are for the 500th. I think that is a gift that a lot of people have.
The idea of selling it has to be the presentation. It's not necessarily always what you say, but it's how you deliver it. I would assume makes a big reason into how this all kind of comes together. Andrew Wontok is with me. I'm Brian Fenley. The idea of you getting started in this business, coming out of college, in selling yourself, what was that like, in the sense of putting yourself out there and being driven to make sure that you found your footing?
Uh, I, when you ask it like that, it seems so, so important. I think, I, I just liked, I like back to kind of the beginning. I always thought comedians were the smartest people in the room, and I liked being around the smartest, funniest people in the room. So I think that's really the answer to the question, is that it wasn't this big plan of like, oh, how do you succeed in this business? I think it was, this is where I just kind of naturally gravitated there. And so when I got the job at the Comedy and Magic Club and became friends with a lot of great comedians, um, it just started, starting in college comedy, and I was in writers' rooms right in college at Arizona State. I was in Farside Comedy and Bear in Mind Improv. who've had a lot of great alumni have come from there, and so that kind of introduced me to like what it, I had no idea what a writer's room was until college, and then being in there, I was like, oh, okay, I see what this is, and it was an amazing experience. And then working at the comedy club right after college, I saw really the business of it, of like how the grind of it, like 7 days a week on stage as much as you possibly can, working on the joke, refining the joke, getting up there, trying it again, working on it. And so then I got to see the business side of it, and I just I was like, okay, well, I love this industry. I love figuring out and solving the Rubik's Cube of why people are laughing when they're laughing. And then Daniel Tosh gave me the opportunity to become his tour manager and then a producer of Tosh.0. And then I really learned what it was like to work on a professional television show, and just, what a huge operation that is. I think on show days it was 60 employees, and then, a day to day was 25 or so, I think, something like that. And everybody was just the best in the business, from the writers to the producers to the directors. um, just to see what an operation that is, when all these professionals, and then of course Daniel is just brilliant. So um, I learned a lot from that, and then leaving Tosh.0 to go to the Jim Jeffries show and becoming a co-executive producer there, and learning what that takes to lead a team of funny people. That's a whole new challenge. And so I've just kind of been um, funny enough to stay around funny people, and then business minded and hardworking enough to do all that it takes to get it to air.
And throughout the different stages in your life, and you talk about the different stops in your career, you've always, as you said, wanted to be around smart people. Who's the smartest person in your own house?
Oh, it's certainly not me. Uh, I'm gonna have to take the fifth on that. All three of them are smart in their own unique ways. My dog Winston, he's got some interesting thoughts. So, yeah, no, that Brittany, Luke, and Charlotte are incredible, but I guarantee they would answer the same way, that it's not me. Let's just leave it there.
So, what do your kids think is most funny about you? When do you feel like they laugh at something you say?
Wow. I get a lot of feedback that I'm not funny at all. And I think I'm much funnier. I think I'm much funnier than I am. So that's generally the feedback I get from them. But we play a game called Smasher, which is kind of a pillow fight attack game. And they think that's hilarious. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
When do you think they're hilarious?
Uh, let's see. When are they hilarious? Well, Luke is very into the highest comedic honor right now is farting. That's where he. But then Charlotte thinks that's disgusting, and then she gets mad. But then I think it's funny that she's disgusted by it. So there's just lots of action happening at all times in this household.
When you see that action happening, how often does it generate ideas for say one of your own sketches?
Yeah, we on the Kind of More show we haven't done a whole lot of fart humor, but I grew up on like Mel Brooks comedies, which that was tons of that. So yeah, oh, they definitely, absolutely have given us a lot of ideas, and um, kids are incredible in that way of like just that when Luke laughs or when Charlotte laughs, it's such like a pure laugh. It's not like tainted by 40 years of sadness.
Yes.
That my laugh has. It's just this like honest thing. So yeah, absolutely. If I can get back to that like pure laugh, I think that's what we're all kind of chasing.
Yeah, it's not that cynical, oh, I've already lost my innocence as a child laugh. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to make myself get back to those days, but I'll never get back there. Andrew Wontuck is with me. I'm Brian Fenley. Being a dad and everything you thought it was going to be, what did you not expect it to be that it's become, that you went into it not thinking would happen?
Mm. I guess it's the cliche answer of I really found myself, I like I kind of like, I don't know if I should be saying this public. Like I didn't have to be a dad. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, I don't care if I ever have kids. But then as soon as you have kids, you're like, oh, I can't imagine life without them. So, uh, it's just an adventure. Every day is so much fun. Lately, we've been playing a lot of like backyard football, and they're really into football, and so we throw the ball around. And, yeah, I just think it's this incredible experience of yeah, it's all the things they say. Like you can't imagine loving somebody more than your children, and that's exactly what it is. So yeah, I thought I could go without it, but now that it's here, I can't. It wouldn't. I'd hate it if it was any other way.
How do you love your children and give them that time they need, but you also are so good at your work and you love your work too?
I'm very mediocre at all of it. So, mediocre parent, mediocre showrunner. Yeah, I think it's right. It's like some semblance of balance. You've got to try to, what I really try to do is when I'm actually doing something, is to stay focused on that because it's so easy to get distracted by your phone and the emails. Da, 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 da. But if you really actually say, "Hey, I'm gonna block off this next half hour, and I'm really gonna play with my kids, or I'm really gonna, read this script and try to produce it in the best way I know how." If you can really cut the noise out, I think at least that's what I try to do. But yeah, it's not easy, right? There are lots of distractions.
If you cut the noise out of everything that you've done in your life, and this is my final question for you, what would be in sorting through and excavating through what you've done, what would be the funniest thing that's ever happened to you in your life?
Mm, the funniest thing. Oh, okay. So it's a quick story, but I'll make it brief. So I wasn't like the greatest kid in the world. Like when I had like that teenage, like I thought my parents were, can we swear on this? I don't,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whatever you want. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Teenage
uh,
angst.
yeah, I had some teenage angst. And so I was kind of I was just kind of like not the greatest teenager. I kind of rebelled, all of that kind of stuff. And one day my dad comes home. I was living in Michigan at the time, and he bought two pumpkins, and I was sleeping in the basement because I was like, this like angsty kid. I didn't want to be near my parents, so I'm just in the basement. It was a finished basement, but like I needed my own space, if you will. My dad comes down and he's like, "Hey, I bought two pumpkins." He's like, "You don't do." I was like 16 or 17. He's like, "You don't do anything for this household." He's like, "I go to work every day. Your mother goes to work every day. You do very little to help." He's like, "You used to mow the lawn. You don't do that anymore. All I'm asking is that you would carve these two pumpkins because it's Halloween and we're going to have lots of little children coming up to our house. And would you please do that for me? I don't have time before it gets dark tonight." And I said, "No problem, Dad. I'll carve your pumpkins." So I start, and he goes up, and I start carving the pumpkins. I make one, which is a nice, triangle eyes, nose, mouth. Great. The second one, though, I thought I was going to get really creative, and I carved, like, I took my time with it. I carved very nicely bubble letters, "Eat shit," and into the pumpkin. And I was like very proud. I thought
Yeah.
it was funny. I was like, I'm gonna put this out. So I put the one pumpkin on one ledge and the "eat shit" on the other one. And my dad, I put a candle in there, I light it up, and the sun sets and it's dark, and now very clearly you can read "eat shit." My dad comes home and he sees this and he comes downstairs. He's like, "Seriously, what?" He's like, "What is wrong with you?" He's like, "This is a child's holiday." Like 7-year-olds coming to our house. So my dad turns the pumpkin around and carves a triangle nose and mouth, blah, blah, blah. But all night long, he said he would open the door and give children candy, and he would just read "eat shit." Well, cut to 15 years later, I was running the Chicago Marathon. And I was running for charity. I painted myself all green like the Incredible Hulk because I had a girlfriend of mine pass away tragically in a car accident. She ran the Washington, D.C. Marathon as Wonder Woman once and raised a bunch of money for charity. So in honor of her, I raised money for her charity and as the Incredible Hulk. And I'm running through Chicago. And at mile 13, halfway point, I'm running through, and this big overpass, this giant sign. There is my father and friends and family. My dad holds up a sign and it says, "Andrew, eat shit.
All those years later.
About 50 years later.
Unbelievable.
And it really made me like, I was awesome. It was like a weird moment because my dad said he was like embarrassed. Like everybody had these signs of like, we love you, wake up. My dad had this giant eat shit sign. But I remember going like, my dad gets me. And like it was just this kind of so it was this like reckoning moment of but I did think it was like one of the funnier things I'd ever seen is somebody running a marathon with their dad holding a sign saying eat shit.
To have that sense of humor and to have that memory all those years later, it all comes full circle, and priceless moments that we hold on to for a lifetime. Andrew Wontuck is somebody who is just dominating his life and will continue to do in his lifetime. It's been so much fun, man. I'm Brian Fenley. Thanks so much for doing this, man. This was a fun look into your life and how your mind works.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Brian. I really appreciate it. And hearing your voice, by the way, we need to do a bit with you and that voice, like you and Connor. We need to do
that'd be fun.
We need to do a bit where we put that voice to work in a non-serious manner.
I would be so grateful. And what is not a serious matter? Well, actually, it probably should be serious in that this is the year the Buffalo Bills get it done.
Oh, come on.
How about we end right there? We started with the Bills, and of course, we finish with the Bills. No other way to do it. The only time in his life where Andrew is superstitious is when it comes to his obsession, rightly so, of the Buffalo Bills. Thanks again, Andrew.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.